afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rahul Binoy, and I'm the event head and your host for today, representing ASMA. ASMA stands for Adoption of Social Media in Academia. It is the leading community in academia, catering to all segments of education sector, comprising of schools, preschools, higher education, government bodies, and corporate houses. ASMA, in on itself, is a knowledge sharing platform that helps to uncover latest insights, anticipating future trends, and providing a transformative social media framework. Today's event is a part of the series that we've been doing under the banner of India's admission hunt. With that being said, let's move on to the much awaited panel discussion of the day. I'd request the audiences to keep yourself engaged by dropping down your questions in the chat box for our speakers to take up. The topic of today's discussion is exploring opportunities to study overseas during the new normal. I'd like to warmly welcome the eminent speakers we have here today with us. Firstly, I'd like to welcome Dr. Christopher Abraham, CEO and Head Dubai Campus, Senior Vice President Institutional Development, SP Jain School of Global Management. Then we have Dr. R.N. Saha, Director, WITS Pilani Dubai Campus, and Sri B.K. Birla and Srimati Sarla Birla, Chair Professor. Then we have Mr. Pranav Pradhan, Director, International Admissions, University of San Francisco. Then we have Ms. Raquel Schroep, CEO, Global Education Solutions, Melbourne. And then we have Mr. Suneet Survase, Founder and CEO, Grad Dreams Education's Consulting Private Limited, India and USA. The moderator of this August panel will be Ms. Pauline Laravoyer, Director, Sustainability, Techno India University. I welcome you all once again. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Now leaving the screen to you, Ms. Pauline, to take up the discussion forward.
Thank you so much, Rahul, and welcome to all of you today on this platform. We'll be here together for an hour and a half, more or less, and we will try our best to give an equal platform to great speakers that have joined us today. Rahul, do you have something to add? I heard something.
No, ma'am, absolutely.
All good?
Good to go, yes.
Great. Thank you. So just a couple of words before we start. I am French, but I am based out of Kolkata, and I myself have personal experience in studies abroad, because I have studied abroad myself when I was a student. I'd like to think it was not too long ago, and really looking forward to all of the insights from all of the great speakers that have just been presented by Rahul today. As far as I have understood of this session, we have an audience mostly composed of students and potentially parents and educational stakeholders that are really and sincerely and genuinely looking forward to hearing insights and gather some guidance to know where their next steps will be. And so requesting all of the speakers on this platform today to try and be as insightful as possible and think about the kind of pieces of advice that you would have liked to hear maybe when we were all younger and still studying. So just to start off the conversation, I wanted to warm up the topic with an overall understanding of why, even at first, would we want to study abroad? Just to put things clear, I would turn to Dr. Chris for this first question. Dr. Chris, over to you. What is it that made you interested in international study? How are you positioned today in regards to this topic? And why would a student want to be interested in going to study abroad? Over to you.
Thank you very much for this question. Good morning, everybody. And this is Dr. Chris Abraham from SP Jain School of Global Management, Dubai Campus. Now, the first question has a very interesting historical perspective. If you look at the history of education, I'm going back thousands of years, and there was an university called Nalanda, and there was something called Taxila way back in India, many thousands of years back. And if you look at the student composition, they used to come from China, from Greece, from other parts of Asia and Africa. So the concept of moving from one place to another and learning has a historical connotation. That's the first context. The second important thing is that today the world is interconnected. Whether we like it or not, whether a pandemic hits us from one part of the world to the other part of the world, whether global stock markets are affected by some bank collapsing, we are interconnected. It's inevitable and it's intricately interconnected. So as a result, you will have this global mobility happening. The other important thing across history, throughout civilization, we have seen that migration, worker migration, employee migration, labor migration, call it by whatever name you want, has been a part and parcel of economic development. So there's a historical connotation, there's a socioeconomic connotation. But here's the most interesting thing. In the current context, anybody who moves from one place to another has the ability to understand the cultural nuances, the behavioral nuances, the business practices, the economic practices. So it becomes extremely relevant in terms of understanding it. And let me give you a very interesting research context. So in the beginning of the century, Cornell University did a very interesting study. The study was to identify or to analyze whether global exposure or multi-country exposure would have any influence on people's problem-solving and decision-making skills. So they had three groups of people, three categories of people. One category, which had a single country exposure. In this case, it was the United States. Another group or another category, which had a two-country exposure, and another category that had three-country exposure or a multi-country exposure. All of them were given the so-called famous Dunker candle problem. A candle, a small box of matches with brass tacks. And the idea is to fix the candle on the wall and light the candle without the wax dripping down the candle. Sounds very simple. It's one of the most perplexing challenges. Now, here are the results. The ones who had a single country exposure had an 18% success rate. The ones who had a two-country exposure had an almost double the success rate, which is about 38%. And the ones who had a multi-country exposure had almost 70% success rate. What's the difference? Neuroscience has a lovely answer for it. Every time you go to a new place, your brain is forming new neural connections. It absorbs all these various things. And when a real challenge occurs, the brain is able to fascinatingly pull out these various strands of information and then connect the dots and then take an appropriate action. In fact, Harvard University calls this global intelligence. So today there's a very strong case for people going global so that they understand different nuances. And the more exposure you have, the better your perspectives, the more expanded your mind, and the better it is for you to solve problems and to connect the dots. So there's a very strong historical, socioeconomic, and of course, a neurobiological basis behind why we need to go and study abroad. So the more exposure, the better the brain in terms of understanding different challenges. And it also helps in creating what we call, in India, we have a very interesting term called the Vasudhaiva Kudumbaga, which is the universal brotherhood of humanity. So it also dovetails into that ancient but extremely relevant philosophic context of people coming together, working together, and of course, contributing together. Those would be my opening remarks. I'll come back again with some insights later. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chris. And if we go back to Nalanda University, imagining that all of these global exchanges happened back then, imagine the relevance of global experiences in such a globalized world as is today. And I can actually vouch it for myself because I have been born and raised in Paris and then moved. I've been living in Kolkata for 3 years now, and the kind of open-mindedness, especially when such two countries are so different, is absolutely wonderful. So thank you so much, Dr. Chris. Very relevant opening comments. I would like to extend the same question to Pranav, if you would like to please give a few words on introduction on the relevance of global experience during studies. And also maybe you can tell us more about where you are and what's your background. You're on mute. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. That was fantastic start. I really enjoyed listening to Dr. Chris. Very quickly, my name is Pranav Pradhan. I'm the Director of International Admissions at the University of San Francisco. I'm currently in Mumbai. I oversee admissions and recruitment in South Asia, Central Asia, Middle East, and the oceanic countries. So I have I would say, a little bit of diverse background. I was an international student myself. And that's how my journey sort of started in this particular role. And I have a background in aviation, but I've been working in the field of higher education for over a decade. So that's where I come from. And I have primarily worked very closely in the US admissions primarily. So that's where most of my comments come from. But just talking a little bit about this desire to study abroad, right? There are a lot of reasons. One is definitely, the thing that Dr. Chris mentioned about, that importance of communication. Like today, when we are sitting in a classroom where we have people coming from different parts of the world, we just learn to communicate in a different way, right? We just learn to, see how people solve problems in a different way. And I feel this is a very valuable experience, right? Lots of times this desire to study abroad may also arise from a supply and demand kind of a situation, right? At the same time, we strongly believe in the concept of best fit, right? Whenever students are looking for a place, there is this one imaginary place which might be the right, looking at a lot of different factors: location, cost, the kind of program that you're looking for. There is a right place. There are fantastic institutions all over the world, right? Whether you are looking in India, whether you're looking in the Middle East, whether you're looking in any part of the world, right? Which one is your best fit? That's something that students sort of try to look for. And in sitting in a diverse classroom is just an experience I cannot talk about. Learning to communicate with people at different levels, especially in today's world, when we are, most of our communication happens over email, when we don't even know who the person on the other side is, right? So these communication skills, whether you are a student in engineering, whether you're a student in sciences, whether you're a student in management, this diversity experience is the most valuable aspect of international education.
Thank you so much, Pranav, for these additional insights. I will keep going on this very same topic just to stay at the introductory level, but adding one layer to it by inviting maybe Sunit to take the lead on this question of what is it that relates global experience during studies and the relevance of such profiles in the job market, especially in India. Sunit, would you like to take this one? You're on mute, if you could unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. This is Sunit Survase. I'm based out in Mumbai, and we are in the field of international education for a very long time. We work with a lot of students going for STEM programs, majorly STEM programs, and that to the North America and at master's and PhD level as well. I think what we have seen is I think, as Pauline asked, how it is relevant to the students who come back to India and how they would be able to apply these skill sets back home. If I'm not wrong, that is what your question meant. So if I can really see a majority of the students who go from India, they go for STEM programs, and that too, a lot of students nowadays prefer computer science and engineering, computer science, and some additional additional courses in a lot of students go for microbiology or pharmacology. These programs are having a very good job market back in India. Okay, we have the kind of IT companies are in India. There are a lot of people I have seen who not only just complete the education, after coming back to India, they have found very good prospects back home. Recently, we have seen some new emerging trends, like people are preferring courses like marine engineering, say game development, something like geophysics or astrophysics. These programs are in demand, and these programs are not very much available in a lot of universities and colleges in India. So, but then some new emerging markets, like the companies are coming with some specialized jobs, are recruiting these students nowadays who have the specialized skill sets, especially from universities from abroad. So I think if we look at some emerging trends, then yes, it is going to be really valuable for students who will come back and apply these skill sets back home. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sunit. I would love to hear Raquel also on this specific topic. Raquel, you can just provide your opening remarks on the questions that have already been opened so far. And I also would love to ask you, when you're a student and the world is so vast, it may be difficult to exactly understand which country, which continent to choose, which university to choose, which path to choose. What is your input on this? How can a student, the students that are listening to us today, how can they best choose what their path is meant to be?
Okay, thank you very much, Pauline. Great to be on this panel with fellow colleagues from around the world. So I've been in international education for the last 26 years, and I started my journey in India, and for the last 15 years, I'm based out of Melbourne. The other hat I wear is I'm also the chairperson of the Indian Career Education and Development Council, which is a non-profit organization set up with support from the Australia-India Council to enable and empower young people transition beyond school and college into the workforce. So we focus on building the competencies that young people need to understand who they are intrinsically. They need to know their skill sets, their motivators, their talents, and also understand the world of work, because the world of work is changing so rapidly in India and overseas as well. And then importantly, know how to decide what's right for them. Like Pranav said, finding your best fit, something that you enjoy, that you're good at, and for which there is employment prospects, and you not just get paid, but also you're able to contribute positively to society. So everybody, wants to find that purpose and that best fit. And, my passion is creating scalable, sustainable models to empower young people, whether they're in school or college, to do just that. So that's a bit about what I deeply care about. And I have some exposure working with institutions, obviously in Australia, all the universities, as well as TAFEs and schools, New Zealand, India, and the Middle East. Now, what I see is, I think in finding your best fit, like my other panelists said, there would be a supply demand gap. So maybe everything that you want, the course that you're really after, or your career aspiration or career goal, may not be fulfilled if you choose a particular course or a university, maybe in your hometown. Maybe if you're aspiring to go to the best place, that best place may not be in your hometown, and you might have to be a little adventurous and seek out, in which country, what is it really well known for. There are universities, of course, there are rankings, but you've got to dig deeper than that to see, what is this university, which department is well known for, what is their link with industry or their research output, if you're interested in innovating and coming up with some new research. So in in the quest for finding your fit and your purpose, a place where you will thrive and contribute, I think that leads you on that journey to seek the destination overseas. And each country has so much to offer, but again, it's about the ability of finding your fit. So what I have seen in these 25, 26 years is that young people from India have always been traveling overseas. I think there are Indians just about anywhere on earth. We have a thriving Indian population in Melbourne as well, where I currently live. So that's not new. People love to go abroad to get a head start in life, maybe in the hope of having a better life for themselves and their family. But I've seen destinations change. It used to be the top 5, US, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the English-speaking countries. But I'm now seeing a lot of people moving to like the Middle East, where Dr. Chris and Dr. Saha are currently based, or going to Germany or even France, Pauline, because either they have access to free education or they go to Japan because Japan's well known for the innovation and technology, and there are scholarships available. So I see the mobility of people changing to different destinations. And I also see changes in how people study. It used to be the traditional way of get on a plane and go to a different place. And that used to be the only way you study abroad. But now you can start in your home country because maybe the college has a twinning program. And then maybe you can move to another country and get some exposure. And then, graduate from your home, the university that you enrolled in. You can do things online and offline. So you could do a whole course, you could do a short course and just get a micro credential. So mobility will continue to remain. People will continue to study abroad, but the format in which that happens, I think that is completely disrupted, and especially after COVID, but that I think will keep evolving as we go along.
Thank you so much, Raquel. There are a couple of points that I really could relate to in what you just said, especially the fact that there's no detour in searching, doing in-depth research about the potential universities and colleges that you would want to join. And as you just said, there are some rankings, but these rankings may hide things or may be partially taking some criteria that may not exactly be absolutely revealing all of the opportunities that these organizations have to offer. So one needs to not only do a bit of research about all of these colleges and look at criteria that the rankings do not take into account, including the kind of, as you said, the industry connects, the network, etc., the kind of the different streams and specialties in which they specialize. But also I feel that there has to be somewhat of a personal connection and a gut feeling that needs to be born between an individual, a student, and a specific institution. One of the things that I think the students can do is always trying to reach out to the alumni network of a specific institution and really look at direct personal testimonies of people that have gone through these organizations. Also, Raquel, you just struck a chord on one of our main topics today, which will be, how all of these global exchanges and global experiences have slightly or even significantly changed during the pandemic. Before we go to that topic, I would like to invite Dr. Saha. Dr. Saha, good morning to you. To share introductory words about your own work. You have extensive experience in the education and, as I believe, also in the pharmacy sector. And you have yourself a very international profile. It would be great to hear from you. How is it that you personally benefited from such international insights in your own career, in your own studies, and then in your own careers, from Kolkata, where you are from and where you studied, to where you are today in Dubai? Over to you, Dr. Shah.
Okay, good morning, and thanks to Pauline and Sarb, as well as my co-panelist. I think it's a great honor for me. You see, I have studied Jadavpur University in Kolkata. I born and brought up in Kolkata. But after study itself, I wanted to be in teaching profession, but I wanted to go out of Kolkata, West Bengal. So I moved to out of West Bengal. I am 35 years with BITS Pilani, probably longest amongst probably all. Okay, so 28 years I was in Pilani, main campus of BITS Pilani. And then last 7 years I am in Dubai as director of BITS Pilani Dubai campus, which was established in year 2000. Presently, BITS Pilani has 6 campuses, 5 physical campuses and 1 virtual campus. Apart from Pilani, it is in Dubai, then Goa, Hyderabad. This year we opened a campus, BITS School of Management in Mumbai. And we have a virtual campus, which is running programs for industry personnel. So in our physical campuses, we have around 17,000 students, and virtual campus, we have 20,000 plus students sponsored by different companies where they work as well as do the program of BITS Pilani. Dubai, yes, Dubai is international campus, which is one of the very few universities in Dubai. KSGA ranked them as a 5-star. Now about my things, what we asked, first of all, I'd like to touch upon the basic question, study overseas. Is it a new? No. If you say years, 100 years back, even Indian students used to go abroad. If it is a law, they used to go to UK. If it is a engineering, it is a more of USA. Medical, it is a USA, UK all. And many top people, if you see, they are all studied abroad. I take few top companies which everyone you know. Our BITS Pilani is linked to Birla family, which is the Aditya Birla Group company. I would like to share that it was established by late Mr. Aditya Vikram Birla, who studied in MIT, USA. If I see our present chairman, Mr. Kumamangalam Birla, he studied UK School of Management, London. If you see Tata, if you see Reliance Group, all people they have studied abroad, which indicates that study abroad is an important part, integral part for the development. I think that is where probably important point of study abroad, which brings a new knowledge, new culture, new thinking ability, new ideas, and solving the problems in multiple approach. Now, as you said, Pauline, that what is in my experience, after spending 28 years in BITS Pilani as a professor, researcher, and administrator, when I moved to Dubai, I also felt initially what is the big thing. I have only job to integrate the Dubai campus with Indian campuses, push the research. But really, I learned totally different. My perspective totally changed because I came to a place where 200 plus international people are there, nationalities are there, thinkings are different. Then UAE has a different thinking to growth, which they wanted to be top in a early development process, which made me see the problem, see the perspective totally different, which I thought. For your information, I did not study abroad. I decided to do everything there, but I visited many countries on invitation because of my research performance and teaching performance. I felt it has opened up, it has changed my thinking ability, solving ways, the problem. Let's take an admission. When I was in India, admission was one particular aspect. But when I came to Dubai, my admission criteria, admission requirement totally changed. So the process which I followed in India, considering the admission in Indian campuses, Dubai campus, I had to move to international. So I had to reach more countries, including African countries also, to present my university and to attract the students. Similarly, the research, if I see, I was director of research for BITS University for 4 years before becoming director here. What the research improvement or research target was there in Indian campus perspective, funding agency, etc., is totally different in Dubai. Here, the government funding very less. So when I pushed my faculty member for the research development, it has become totally different. I had to look for more of international, more of industry projects, which I am doing it. I have done in my life also. Now coming to the students also. The student perspective, you will see, it gives them a totally different aspect to take a problem and solve it. It gives them an opportunity. I personally saw the students who are coming to Dubai study, their mind open arms, and then they think of going another places to get the knowledge. And lot of students, including the girl students, they are deciding, though coming from India to study in Dubai, but they are deciding to stay in Dubai because various reasons. One of them obviously is the safety of the girls. Being the opportunity to them, it is an international solution, not the localized. So when they go back to India, their knowledge, their thinking ability, their problem solving ability totally changes, which make them, it's a much easier. So that's why I feel, though it is not a new, only because it has become the digital age, this study abroad has become more prominent. That is the reason we are doing this panel discussion. So I think this is really give the students a better opportunity, better edge over the students who are doing their own country.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shaha. There's a couple of comments that ignited from what you were saying. The first one is, you know, when I moved to Kolkata, to India, I noticed, because this is not something that we usually do in France, but I noticed that when two people introduce each other, usually they start in their very first sentences, they start by saying if they studied abroad or not, in such a way that it seems the culture here in India gives so much importance to experience abroad. Oh, have you studied abroad? Yes, this is my son, who studied in the US, who studied here, who studied there. And at first I was like, I mean, it should not be, a person should not be reduced to yes or no if he or she has gone to study abroad, but with a bit more perspective now, and also feeding onto my own experience abroad as well, I do understand the value and the relevance of such questions, to understand maybe how open one's mind is and to give a bit of context about a person. So that was something that made me think of that. The second comment that I wanted to bounce on based on what you said is, as you mentioned, your own institution has owned campuses in more than one country, right? So today it's not only about alliances between universities and colleges in different countries, it's about sometimes one institution which will have different campuses in different regions, and therefore facilitating the mobility of students of that particular region to another. A good example that I also have from Kolkata is Techno India University has recently joined hands with a Paris-based design school, which is called École Intuit Lab, and has campuses in Paris, Aix-en-Provence, Mumbai, and now Kolkata, in one institution having such a span. So this is also, I'm guessing, a tendency that is very, very prominent. Thank you so much again, Dr. Shaha. I'll go back to Pranav for the next question, which, let's dive into it, will be related to the pandemic. Pranav, sitting from Mumbai with your connections with San Francisco, how is it that international exchanges and experiences for students have changed because of the pandemic, and how do you see it evolve in the near future? Over to you, Pranav.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So the whole point, what pandemic did to a lot of processes was, in some cases, it has fast-tracked a lot of changes that were due for a very long time. Being physically present versus, what are the things that you absolutely need to be there physically versus what can work. Like, a lot of things that we have learned is, although can be done over Zoom, that you don't want to do them over Zoom, right? Students still want to be sitting in that classroom and want that experience. I mean, today with technology, literally anything and everything is available virtually. You can virtually visit a country, you can virtually study in a different location, you can virtually meet with people. So there's virtual options available for absolutely everything. It's like giving that example. I mean, and this is something that me being from the aviation background, I always use this example. We have technology that can fly airplanes on their own, and that technology has existed for a very long time. but you as a passenger, do you feel comfortable sitting in an airplane without a pilot, right? So the thing is that we have technologies that can do things remotely, right? But at the same time, this that personal experience, this personal being physically present on a campus is something that's definitely going to stick around. I mean, students want to be there. That being said, uh, we have really explored boundaries of what all can be done virtually, right? So for example, teaching classes, for example, taking examinations, a lot of these examinations that students take to study abroad. So for example, the SATs or the ACTs versus some of the English proficiency exams, a lot of them had suddenly come up with online and virtual options available. So um, there is still time to really see where this all settles down. But I feel that pandemic has definitely fast tracked some of these long pending changes.
Thank you so much, Pranav. I would love to hear Dr. Chris on this. Um, what I consider as an existential issue, right? Not only considering international education, but education as a whole, right? There is a difference between going on a physical campus and following education online. Although you are connecting with the whole world, is it the same as immersing yourself into a culture by visiting physically a country? Dr. Chris, do you have any philosophical and more hands-on inputs to this question?
Sure. Fascinating. Let me start with the context of human ingenuity. Now, there's a very interesting research, and I'll connect both to the context. Very interesting research that every time there has been a catastrophe, there has been a setback, it could be financial crisis, a world war, a pandemic, or any kind of catastrophe. If you see the history of human history, you would find that every time humanity has bounced back with extra resilience, extra strength, and extra grit. So that's inbuilt into us, this grit and resilience, the ability to fight back, the ability to come with creative solutions. They've all been part and parcel of the human imagination. Having said that, neurologically, we are social creatures. We have what we call the social brain. There's something fascinating that happens when 2 or more or 5 or 10 or 15, 20, 100 adults come together. So there's an interconnection at a neural level where we feel one with the other person. So that can't be replicated by digital isolation. Having said that, so what's the best option available? So go back in time, and I'm sure many of our other panelists would also have similar experiences. April 2020, when all our campuses, so we have our headquarters in Sydney, Australia, we're an Australian business school with campuses in Dubai, Singapore, and Sydney, and with an option to also start their journey in Mumbai, India. Now, what's the rationale behind all of this is, as I said in my earlier opening remarks, that every time you go to a new place, your brain has new neural connections, you become more globally intelligent. So for us, it's a mandatory experience of moving from one city to the other. It's not a choice. There are many institutions that give a choice, but at SP Jain School of Global Management, it's mandatory. And the reason behind, I would say it's a method in the madness, is because when you go to the Middle East, Dubai, you are actually being immersed in the Middle Eastern culture, the Middle Eastern traditions, the Middle Eastern business practices, the Middle Eastern economic environment, the Middle Eastern socio-political nuances. And when you go to Singapore, you may probably need to unlearn a lot of things that you learned in Dubai. You need to relearn something new from the Far Eastern context, Chinese, Asian, Malaysian, Singaporean cultures meshing together. And then when you go to Sydney, you're talking about a first world country, a Commonwealth country, with its own nuances in terms of what it can teach. Now, can this experience be replicated digitally? Not really, because you need to have that physical presence, and we're just waiting and praying when it'll happen. As you know, Dubai has already opened up, Singapore has already started issuing visas. Sydney, they're still waiting for a couple more months, but it's likely to happen by the end of the year. So the whole idea of mobility actually has a connection to our global brain, has a connection to understanding global nuances, and also learning from these practices. There's another very interesting dimension to global experience, learning experience. while you're at the Dubai campus, the student not only studies at the Dubai campus, he or she also gets exposed to the cultures and traditions of the Middle Eastern environment. They get to learn from some of the scholars and politicians and business leaders in the Middle Eastern context. And then they get to visit Middle Eastern places of culture, Middle Eastern places of business, Middle Eastern places of interest. So they actually get immersed in the Middle Eastern way of doing things. Now, when they move on to Singapore, they do the exact same thing. We call it the Global Immersion Program. So I think that is a critical dimension or a differentiator where they move from one place to the other. And as I told in my earlier opening remarks, the brain connects all these things and at the right opportune moment brings it out into the forefront. Now, can we replicate this? I think we have attempted to replicate to some extent, and that's what we've done. We created, even before the pandemic started, we had a cutting edge online technology called ELO. I would encourage the student guests to actually go and visit that on YouTube. It's cutting edge. It's done by us individually. It's a proprietary technology. And what we have tried to do is to replicate the actual classroom experience on an online format. It might sound like an exaggeration, but I mean it when I say it, that we have even mastered the technology to ensure that when the professor is teaching in the digital classroom, he or she is able to make eye contact with the 100 to 200 odd students sitting on the digital canvas. So the professor can actually see each one of them. He or she can actually do eye contact with each of them. He or she can actually see whether they are learning, whether they're listening, whether they're interacting. So there are quizzes, there are breakout rooms, there are case studies, there are simulations, everything happening online. So we have tried to replicate that. And here's the exciting part of the digital. And this is where I think the human ingenuity comes in. So earlier, we would have students coming from 40 to 45 different countries who converge into these cities, whether it's Dubai, Singapore, or Sydney. Today, we have students coming from 70 plus countries on the online format because the world is your playing field. And you have students from all over the world converging. So now you could have a student in Mexico, you can have another student in New Zealand. And I'm using these countries in context because Mexico is one side of the world and New Zealand is on the other side of the world, barring time zones. And all these are recorded live, so you can actually review and download the lectures and the interactions. But the whole idea is that, now let's take a typical Indian student who is in this particular international class. He is now learning perspectives from a French student, probably like you, and maybe learning from a New Zealander, maybe learning from a Mexican. And all of us who have been exposed to international communities know the perspectives are so very different in different parts of the world. It comes from the history, comes from the culture, comes from the biology, comes from the personality. So the whole range of things that happens, which helps us to appreciate that we are one in terms of our thought processes, in terms of our collaborative modes, but at the same time, we're very different in terms of our perspectives and backgrounds. So yes, we have attempted to a large extent to replicate the face-to-face experience, but trust me, we can't replace. You can complement the face-to-face experience, but you can't replace, because the dimension, the physical dimension of a professor and a bunch of students coming together from different places is part of what we call the global social brain. And that can't be replicated. You need to have that. And God willing, in the next few months, as I said, Dubai is already open. We already have face-to-face classes. We have students come from these different 30-odd countries who are converged in Dubai, in spite of some elements of the pandemic still going on, but vaccinations on drive. But so the whole idea is that you can't replace face-to-face, but you can complement it with amazing stuff. Here's another one, and I'll end my remarks. The other big excitement is that today we could have guest lecturers from any part of the world. It could be the CEO of Visa Card who actually came and spoke to our students. He didn't come physically. If we had to ask him to come over, I don't think he would have had the opportunity to come over. He wouldn't. But because it was virtual, he was able to do it from the United States. We had great top executives from Europe, from South America, from all over the world who could come and talk to our students. So on one hand, yes, the pandemic has created havoc in terms of disturbing the face-to-face contacts. But on the other hand, it has opened up a plethora of opportunities to connect to the global network of professors, students, and of course, professionals. So I think the way forward will be a blend of these technologies. We will have face-to-face. We'll have a lot more of online interactions because now we know that it works. And if you have a technology like ELO, you can certainly create magic and take the world forward. So the future, as I envisage, would be a future which would have some elements of face-to-face, lots of online interventions, and then you move forward to create what we call a global community of radical free thinkers who can disrupt the 21st century.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chris. I completely agree. At the end of the day, it's about learning from this pandemic and maybe eventually take the best of both worlds, the world that we knew before with 100% physical presence and a more brick and mortar vision of education, and the new normal, the next normal, whatever we call it, which allows, as you just said, personalities and thought leaders and lecturers coming from all over the world to reach out to broader audiences in ways that have never been achieved before. So very insightful and nuanced answer from you. Thank you so much. I'll move to Raquel and then Sunit on similar questions. Raquel, based on your observations on the educational space right now, how is it that you see the pandemic affecting global exchanges? How is it? What are the virtual programs, maybe the online programs that you have observed around you, and the best practices that the students that are listening to us today may go ahead with and opt for? I know that now what is one of the challenges that we face is that there's so much, if I may say, competition online in terms of offers, that it may be difficult for students listening to us today to again choose the right path for themselves. How is it that they choose the best ones? How is it that that they can benefit from the best practices of this new virtual world? Over to you, Raquel.
Okay, thank you. There's quite a lot packed in that question. So first of all, I think online there are some benefits that I've observed. One is in an international context where some cultures, students are naturally shy and they don't open up in class. But I find online, they're quite chatty, you know, and they don't have inhibitions of, you know, talking to people even with the opposite gender in an online forum. So one is, I felt in some cultural contexts, online has enabled greater participation, you know, across genders, which is a good thing for sure. For some courses, however, yeah, online, though you use augmented virtual reality and things like that, if you're enrolling in a course like, say, nursing, it's quite hard for you to do a practical component online. Maybe you could do some theoretical components, but then if that's what you are pursuing, you must be mindful of the limitations it offers, unless, of course, the university that you are enrolling in has come up with a creative option that where you can do some supervised practice in your home country or in your home city because of arrangements that they have either with industry or with their partner institution in your home country. If they can give you a blended approach of some online classes as practicable and some sort of practical components that you could possibly do in your home country, I think that would be wonderful. But of course, I you know, second what Dr. Chris said about the actual experience of being in another country. And besides all the things about academic success, I think the best part about studying overseas is self-directed learning and self-management, because you're on your own. You don't have your parents to tell you what to do, or anyone for that matter to tell you what to do. And you've got to balance your academic life, your probably part-time work, because most countries allow you to work part-time on campus or off campus, and that is what a lot of students do. So you've got to balance academics, you've got to balance your work, you've got to balance your personal life, and that gives you a maturity, a career maturity, which is unparalleled. You can't get that anywhere else. And if you ask most people why you actually go abroad, a lot of them will say that, that it's all that learning that occurs even unconsciously outside the campus. And while you're in the community, working part-time or living with others from different cultures. So that learning is definitely something that is so valuable. The other thing about what's going on now is I feel, everybody has realized that you've got to constantly keep upgrading yourself. So I find the learner profile has changed a lot. So even if you're in a bachelor's course, like my daughter is doing a Bachelor of Health Science now, and she was saying, her class has a lot of mature age students because they've probably changed careers, they may have lost jobs, or they may be forced to upgrade because, they are transferring their skills to a different occupation, uh, or that's the requirement by their company. So I feel lifelong learning has already set in. We've all spoken about it in conferences, but now it's real. So people at all ages are doing either short courses, some sort of certification, or maybe a long course. And in my own house, my daughter, she's doing, her university has allowed her to drop the load, the academic load. So rather than doing 4 subjects a semester, she's doing only 2 subjects online. And she's still doing those 2 units online because there's no practical component yet. She's only in 3rd semester now. She can do online. So she's dropped her caseload, but the time that she's got freed up, she decided to do some volunteer work, and she's got an internship. Both of it, which she found by herself. So I'm really happy for her that she is working more than me now, and I'm gone back to university to do a little graduate certificate because I felt, a certificate in crisis management is definitely the need of the hour, and I found a university that was offering it online. So I'm gone back to studying, though I've got 26 years of experience. My daughter is working now more than me. So I think the pandemic has just brought lifelong learning as a concept. It's not a cliche anymore. It's real, and all of us have to keep upgrading ourselves, like our mobile phone, with little updates every now and then. Otherwise, it stops working. We've got to do the same in our life. So whether you're a student watching this and you're just in school wondering when your 12th standard exam is going to happen this year, or you're a professor in college, I think every one of us have to re-look at where we are right now, and maybe keep upgrading ourselves. So I think the pandemic in that sense has given us all opportunity to do that.
Thank you so much, Raquel. It's indeed important to realize that beyond the classroom, the world is a university, and wherever you're going, there are learning opportunities every second and every person you encounter on your way. And so we kind of, I feel, especially with the pandemic, which kind of accelerated this realization, we have, as lifelong learners, as you said, to realize that learning can fit us in many different ways, can be short-term online courses on more long-term physical courses. At the end of the day, the kind of educational offer that is there, around us is absolutely, it can be overwhelming, but at the same time, if one can can research wisely and think about what best fits oneself, then there are so many opportunities that one can take. So I think this is a key takeaway of the of your mentions here. Also, I would like to go back to Sunit on a similar purpose. Sunit, since the pandemic happened, did you change the way you address students, you guide them in terms of, I mean, realizing that the conditions have changed, that is to say, the offer has changed from educational purposes. Financial strength of families, especially during the pandemic, has also changed. One of the things that we usually observe at Techno India, for example, when we propose all of these internal experiences to students, is that some of them do not have the financial strength to be able to offer that to themselves. What is it that, how is it that you change the way you address students on international experiences, and what are the new opportunities that you guide them towards instead? Sunit, if you would like to bring a few more insights on this. Kindly unmute yourself.
Hello, thank you for asking. That's a great question. Normally we, when we work with students, and when we shortlist the institutions for the students based on their profile and their background, including their, financial capacities. Normally we see the reputation of the university, the rankings, what are the job prospects after coming out of that school, how good are the faculties, what kind of student bodies are there, and maybe some student clubs and activities and all of that. I think this pandemic has forced us to, add two more very important dimensions to our day-to-day work. And that is, are there good healthcare facilities available on campus also for the international students at a reasonable cost? And that's one, because in last 1 year, whoever the students were on campus when the pandemic actually started, I think they had a horrible time. Everything was locked down. There were a lot of universities where even the campuses were, the students were asked to vacate the campuses, and wherever they were living, I think that was a problem. So what kind of healthcare facilities are going to be there on campus? And this is a very important new question. We have seen recently, even the parents asked this question. So is it near the this healthcare facility, if that is near to the campus, inside the campus, it's a matter of priority now onwards. And second very important aspect is going to be what is the community presence on campus. Like in general, if you keep aside this pandemic, in general also it takes a lot of time for any new student of any age for that matter, okay, to adjust in the new surroundings and to blend and also to get blended in the cultural setting of the university. Especially after this pandemic, people are a little more concerned about, for example, as an Indian student, I think sometime back Rachel mentioned that, you find Indian students almost anywhere in the world, any part of the world. You name the city or you name the university, you find an Indian student for that, or students, a lot of students. So now onwards, this is also going to be a very important factor. Tomorrow, if something happens to me, because it looks like, this pandemic is going to be there for a while now, at least 3 to 4 years. Nobody knows, but maybe at least 2-3 years. Then, if I'm to fly in this fall 2021 or, in Jan 22 or something like that, and if something happens to me, then these two things, access to the healthcare facility, good facility, and will there be some community around, is going to be a very, very crucial factor. And let me tell you, right now, there are a lot of students having admission offers ready. In fact, they have these offers ready in their hands since last 1 year. A lot of people have cancelled the plans, but now they are rethinking, revising their plans to check, okay, what happened on campus this pandemic, and if I'm going on this campus, will I get these facilities and all. I think that's a very, very crucial new change in the mindset of students, parents, even the professionals we have seen. One quick thing which I would also like to add with regards to the earlier questions, we have the virtual settings very much on now, and people are taking online classes, and a little bit of difference here also. What we are facing every day is most of the students are going to prefer in-person instruction. I think this is a temporary solution, what we are doing, the virtual learning and all. But then again, we will have to look at from two different standpoints, course-wise and age group-wise. Like, if you see the young crowd, like, undergraduate students, say, or maybe we can take a broader bracket, say 16 to 28 for that matter. I think this is the age group where maximum people would love to go on campus, travel from one place to another, and it's. I think it's not just about all about getting a degree. I think people learn more outside the classroom. Okay, fine. Right now, I'm taking the online classes, but then I'm going to miss out on that part of roaming around the campus, working in another departments, getting different assistantships and fellowships. I have a lot of my students, say for example, working in they are studying in a computer science department, but then they are working in the language department as an assistant. So how do you do this online? It's impossible. Okay, now if you see some careers, it's absolutely perfect for business management students to study online. It's absolutely perfect for IT, computer science people, data analysts, these careers. Believe me, I think people can really enjoy these kind of studies online. But what about a student who is from a chemistry background? What about a student who is from a biological sciences or pharmacy background, or so these courses, I don't think which involves a lot of theory as well as the practice in the labs and all. It's practically impossible. So what I feel is you'll not be the world will not be able to transport the offline ambience online. It's going to be really difficult. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sunit. I take this opportunity to tell our viewers that we are going to speak for another 15 minutes, and then we'll open up the floor to some questions. So don't hesitate to start writing your questions either in the Q&A box or in the chat, and then we'll take it up at the end of the conversation. Sunit, also, thank you so much for I would say bringing the conversation back to a very practical, dimension for the students who are listening to us. And I'll follow up on this particular stance with maybe Dr. Shaha. I indeed had heard myself of a lot of students around me that had admissions validated abroad, which had to be delayed, and they had no clue what to do with these admissions. Should they go there and be stuck on a campus, not having the possibility to meet anyone on the campus? Should they delay it? Should they go ahead with another institution that would be closer to home? In terms of admissions, also for these students that would want to give it a chance in the near future in a context of a pandemic, should they go ahead, and how, very practically speaking? Dr. Shaha, do you have any insights, practical insights for them? You're on mute, sir.
Can you repeat the question? What is exactly you are saying that?
Practically speaking, the students who either have already been admitted abroad or are looking to look at admissions in the very near future in the context of a pandemic, how should they practically go ahead with it? Should they look to travel in the short run and potentially not finding, as Sunit said, maybe the healthcare and community support that they may need on a campus because of the pandemic? Should they delay? Should they go ahead? What should they do with that?
Okay, here is a two aspects of the questions. What is I am telling you what the answer can be two aspects. But first of all, I would like to emphasize one thing, which you asked earlier also, some speakers spoke. What the physical attendance or presence gives, it cannot be replicated by the online. Because physical, when a student is coming to the campus, he is not only getting the knowledge of the subject, but he gets many other things. What is meant by many other things? See, we are doing the online webinar. I fell down suddenly. From there, you can only say, Dr. Saha, hold the chair, pull your up, you can do that things. But if it is in a room, we are sitting together, and I fell down, I think all of you will rush to me to pull me up. So this is a different perspective you get when you are sitting in the physical classes or physical campus. So you learn beyond the subject, you learn many other things. Now coming to this, your question, there's a two aspects of these universities. One sort of universities is like Dubai or similar countries, where even some of the Australians I was observing, where the restrictness is not that much. We are having the physical classes. We have students in the hostel. We have the day scholars who are coming to attend physical classes. So such cases, students can come. I tell you, last year's, whatever my new admission from India and other countries, 100% students came by the first semester itself between September to November. They moved depending on the availability, opportunities of the flights and etc. Now this second semester, 100% of the new students from abroad, they have come and residing in the hostel. They are getting the exposure of physical classes as well as physical practicals. Now I say other country, like say take an example of India or other countries where the numbers etc. I know in Calcutta or Bombay, it is increasing like anything. Their movement physically may be the problem. So there the university has to decide what best way they can give the exposure to the students. Can they bring them and keep them in a small group so that the chance of contamination, etc. can be reduced? Otherwise, they have to rethink. I tell you one more thing. Many places, online is just replication of the physical things there. I upload my PPT and then teach it. There is no interaction happens, not much of things are differently done. I think there is a university has to think how best this online can be changed so that the student get better exposure. Obviously, Sumit said, I agree very much, some subject, pharmacy, biological sciences, medical sciences. Can you think if the medical sciences MBBS student or MS student is doing online classes, then tomorrow coming to treat me? I'll be scared of that what he is going to do. He has to operate something on me. It cannot be. Okay, so there the student has to go, something has to be done in the campus, small segment students can be located and then shift system, at least they should get exposure. I think university has to think of that one, but where the opportunities are there, like I say, Dubai and many other countries where the situation is not that bad. Okay, so there I think university should bring the students there, give the exposure to the practicals and other things. Otherwise, where there is not possible, it has to be thought of differently. Technology has to be changed. I think that is another point I'm telling you. A new study required, whether it's a short time or big term, I don't say educational technology. I think this has opened up a new opportunity for the universities to work on this educational technology, how technology can be used for better learning of the students, but not by just repeating a physical classes on the online. Similarly, it has opened up the opportunity, as you said, admission, etc. Can it be done for the lifelong learning for the graduates already, for their knowledge? These online facilities can be utilized that way. I think that is where student has to be given the opportunity because they learn more in the campus, physically present. As far as possible, university should try instead of just taking. See, we have been given an option by the KSDA that you can go fully online or physical and online. We opted for the second one, though it is a very tough for us to maintain, to control the infection and other things. But we took the challenge. I think university has to take the challenge, try to bring the students. And student, if he has decided university, I'll suggest not to change that one. Try to go there and continue the study. Because he might have opted it for a specific purpose. That purpose should not be defeated. I hope I have provided the answer to you.
Absolutely, Dr. Shah. Thank you so much. Dr. Chris, I saw you unmuted yourself. You wanted to add something.
Yeah. So what have we done? exactly like what Dr. Saha said. I think the onus should be on the student who has the privilege and the opportunity to analyze and do it. So as I said, ours is a multi-campus mandatory experience. So we said during the pandemic, which was last year in the middle of the pandemic, we said most of our students who would come from India, we said you can stay where you are. And for our international students as well, initially stay where you are, we'll do online. But the moment the borders open up, which happened in the case of Dubai, which has already happened now in the case of Singapore, we said, please start packing your bags. So I think it's a question of wait and watch, because more from the pandemic perspective. Now the good news, on one hand, yes, there are large number of cases across the world, but there is this big hope of vaccinations trying to create herd immunity. So certainly students took that bold plunge and moved over. So this should be a transitionary phase where students are given the option to do it online. As I said, the online can be spiced with more international flavor, but as we all agreed, nothing can replicate the face-to-face. So give them that option. Now let's take an example of a student who has to go to Australia, because we face a similar challenge. Now, in many Australian universities, they've given the offer, they've given the admissions, and unfortunately, the student can't travel. Now, options, as I said, if you can bide your time and do it on online for a year and then move over at the right time, could be option one. But if you can't do that, then maybe it's time to also compare and contrast and see if there are other options available in Europe, in United States or Canada, any other options that normally Indian students would vouch for. The third thing you can do, and this I think is a very important advice for all youngsters, you know, when a catastrophe like this hits us, the normal reaction of a human being would be, oh my God, it's happened. And we tend to give up. You know, I don't know what to do. I'm just stuck. So rather than do that, yes, it's a pandemic. Yes, it's hit all over the world. Yes, it's affected my education. Yes, it's affected my admissions. What can I do now? And the moment you start pondering and reflecting on that particular question, my suggestion would be start investing in doing some free online courses. It could be Coursera. Now, one of our panelists spoke about credentials, micro credentials. That could be an extremely exciting idea to look at, not waste time. Yes, your college or university would give you courses online, but there's plenty of time available. It's a great opportunity for you, the world of knowledge and wisdom waiting to be tapped from your home. So if you can explore that, you know, you may even want to explore into multiple disciplines to look at exciting offers. The other advice that I'd like to give youngsters is that gone are the days when you have to focus on a particular area. One of our panelists again, you know, hinted on that. You can't just be doing engineering. You can't just be doing computer science. You can't just be doing design. So you need to have what is called cross-functional, cross-disciplinary perspective. Now, a college or university or a business school like SP Jain actually offers this cross-discipline. So you get to, do a couple of electives in marketing or finance or supply chain, but you also get what I would call critical life skills. You know, they normally used to call it soft skills. I don't agree they are soft skills. They are smart life skills. So combine life skills. And last year, World Economic Forum gave a very interesting set of 6 intelligences that you need to survive and thrive in a pandemic world. Number 1 is contextual intelligence. What is contextual intelligence? The ability to make sense of what's happening around us. Let me give you an example. The pandemic itself. Deaths from COVID is the 42nd cause of death worldwide. How many of us actually know this fact? So when you hear the media shouting hoarse about COVID, there's a paranoia that's created through media frenzy, which is more manipulated than real. So you need to have the context. Okay, so this is what is happening. Take stock of it. I'm not saying the pandemic is gone. No, it's still there. But there are many other things you can do in the mid of all of this. So investing into your education, investing into your multidiscipline factors. So number 1 is contextual intelligence. Second one, social and emotional intelligence. Again, becoming more relevant in a digital world. Physically, of course, we need to have the emotional intelligence and the social intelligence to work with, collaborate with, and cooperate with fellow citizens of the world. So that's critical. And in online, it becomes even more relevant how emotionally and socially you are intelligent. The third skill they spoke about, again, extremely critical in the 21st century, is ethical and moral intelligence. Your moral compass has to be always upright, always transparent, authentic, and honest. There are no two ways about it. We have seen the disasters of top CEOs falling from grace because of this one dimension. The fourth one is technological/digital intelligence, the ability to use and apply technologies as relevant in your particular area, whether it's finance or banking or medicine or engineering or whatever. You need to know the current cutting edge technologies. That should be done. The fifth one is what we call generative or innovation intelligence. The ability to think out of the box, the ability to think like a design thinker, the ability to critically evaluate various options and then move on. All of us have an amazing God-given brain that has the ability to be analytical as well as creative. We again missed this point. I'm either creative or I'm analytical. That's complete bull. We all have an amazing brain that's capable. 21st century requires whole brain thinkers. And last but not the least is transformational intelligence. So universities, business schools, students, parents, we all need to be cognizant that these are the cutting edge skills and this is where I need to invest. I'll end with one last comment that life is one long process of learning, unlearning, and relearning. Whether you're 16 years, whether you're 60 years, it doesn't matter, but continuously you need to upgrade yourself. So cross-functionality, cross-disciplinary perspective, investment into human skills and technical skills, and lastly, a continuous process of learning, unlearning, and relearning. So yes, the pandemic is there. How can I make the best use of it with the resources that are given to me and then transform myself, transform the community, and in the process, transform the world? That would be my comments.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chris. I loved the stance that you have taken.
Pauline, we are unable to hear you, I think. Am I correct? Or it is only my problem? Yeah, now I think probably okay. Yeah.
I think it's on my side. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just saying that I loved your stance on the fact that one should be positive in given circumstances that are provided to everyone in the same way on the planet and that are completely out of our control. It is our role and our duty to think about, with these given circumstances, what can I do? Even things that I will not have had the opportunity to do if these circumstances would not have happened. So thank you so much for this, Dr. Chris. I also saw, Sunit, you unmuted yourself. Do you wish to add something on top of that?
No, thank you.
Okay. Rahul, also you activated your video. Does it mean that you have something to tell us?
No, I have nothing, actually.
Okay, great. I have one last question before we take a couple of questions that have appeared in the Q&A box. I'm going to turn to Pranav. For this last question, Pranav, of course, there is the outbound of students from India overseas, and there's also another flux that can be considered, which is the inbound, students coming from abroad to India, which is also one way, if I may say, to provide international circumstances, international environments to Indian students as well, who may have stayed in their country to study, thinking of campuses as international microcosm for the same. What is it that you have seen educational institutions in India do to foster and to boost attractivity for students abroad to come to India? Over to you, Pranav.
Thank you. We do very closely track the IIE report of student mobility, and whether that's mobility from India to the US or US to other countries or from other countries to India. We definitely see an increase in number of students, and especially this happens a lot more at the research level. There is an increasing demand for joint research projects. There's an increasing demand of exchange programs. One of the biggest thing that attracts international students coming to India right now is definitely that India is an emerging market. It's an emerging economy. There are things that are moving at a very fast pace. and where is, I mean, no better place to sort of learn such a fast-paced environment. So we definitely see a lot of research interest. We definitely see a lot of interest in partnerships, exchanges, and research. That's where majority of that happen. Although we've not seen a lot of international students coming and studying in India full time yet, but that's definitely an increasing number.
Thank you so much, Pranav. And as a transition to another question that I would love to have 2 minutes to cover with Dr. Shaha. I know, Dr. Shaha, that you've been doing a lot of research yourself, and I wanted to have maybe a few comments from your end on how can these international relationships come and foster research projects, not only in between maybe students at the master and PhD level, but also maybe faculty exchanges in between institutions. Dr. Shaha.
Yeah, this is, I think, is a question close to my heart. Okay, though I am an administrator, but I always consider myself first as a teacher and researcher. You see, from 2000 onwards, I decided to do mainly industry research because I felt that is a very challenging, at the same time, highly satisfying. And that is where I have been a little bit successful. I have been developed commercial products which have been patented and commercially marketed in Indian market. 2005 onwards, products are there. Very recently, another product has been launched also to the market. You see, I look this way. When the industrial research is there, it has no boundary. Because if I have an ability, I can take up the project from USA or any, and for your information, I have or had project from USA also. At this moment, I have a project from ColorCon, USA. I had project Lubrizol from USA. I have a project from UK on pharmaceutical company for developing a product. So this is where I think this international exposure gives you opportunity. I have been able to connect with my research group or my department in Pilani. We have been able to connect to US research centers of INIS and other places. This is a fantastic opportunity for the student because PhD student, not only PhD student, we have a research in undergraduate level also, where a student can take up a project instead of a course. So instead of elective course, he can take a project where he can do a 3 units research project under the guidance of a student, a teacher. So there is an opportunity, and I am leading few international collaboration with Tel Aviv University, Israel, IAH, in USA, that their defense research laboratories and few other universities. I think this is a very interesting area. The people should think of international collaborations, international research and industry research. But yes, industry research is not a very easy. It requires important things, a timely delivery, that is deliverability, punctuality, and confidentiality. But it gives the mileage to the universities because when you develop something which has been commercialized, it gives a big mileage and students get motivated for such type of work also. So you don't have a dearth of research students, whether it's undergraduate, postgraduate, or PhD. So that way, the teachers can collaborate, and some of the industry problem cannot be solved by a single person. It requires a multiple people. So when I am collaborating with a Tel Aviv University, I can solve a problem better than others. So that is where I think that international exposure gives this international research collaboration, which in a long run give the benefit of that one.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shaha, for this very insightful comment. Raquel, do you want to add something to it?
I just wanted to just quickly say that inward mobility from an Australian perspective is definitely high on the agenda. There's a new plan called the New Colombo Plan, which allows Australian students to come to India and spend a short duration. So in the past, it used to be in areas like film and media because of the Bollywood attraction and things like that. But now I'm seeing students who even come up to 1 semester or do research in, say, in biotechnology in Bangalore, or they could probably do an internship in somewhere in Pune, because their partner institution not just provides duty of care, but access to the industry connections that they have locally. So, and I think that's definitely the India version 2.0, the new inward mobility, which is moved away from only attracting students from the SAARC countries who came to India maybe for a whole course, but now with plans like Australia's New Colombo Plan, I'm sure other countries have similar schemes in place, where they encourage their students to travel to countries like India for part of their course. And all these are credits that can be transferred back to your degree when you graduate. And now the New Colombo Plan is virtual. So I guess Australia has been quite good, not just with the way they've managed the pandemic, but also very quick to be agile and adapt with innovative ways of, keeping the momentum going.
Thank you so much, Raquel. And I see a comment in the chat that mentions the Turing scheme, set up
Which is
UK
probably similar, yeah.
For inward connections with India. And in the same way, actually, France is very much pushing for French students to go to India. Actually, my alma mater, HEC Paris, is actually has come up with this program called Hcc Ambassadors, where they appoint alumni from their network to pass on the word to these opportunities to new students in India. So I think a lot of countries are all on the same page in terms of the value that are brought by international exchanges and international experiences. Dr. Chris?
No, just wanted to add, there was a question in the Q&A format where...
I was about to extend this one to you.
Yeah.
Please take it on.
In the future, yeah, from students is the employability and internships. That will be transformational. How are university addressing it? I had partially mentioned that in my earlier comment, that it's not just the academic input that you need to give in. So there are 3 levels at which we have to do it. One is the academic input, which can be given on an online platform, which can be given through various digital platforms. But the second one, again, very aptly mentioned by one of our panelists, is the actual exposure to a particular environment, to culture, to business, to economics, to recreation, to lifestyle, all those dimensions, the nuances that you learn as a global citizen, the second one. The third dimension, which I think is equally important, is the ability to transform life skills. So one is the subjective inputs, which is all the academic inputs. Number 2 is the global immersion, which is the cultural, behavioral, personality dimensions. The third one is the life skills dimensions. So again, SP Jain has tied up with India's #1 smart skills training institution called Harappa Education, run by Dr. Pramod Sinha. And every student has a personalized intervention during their journey in their master's and MBA programs. So we map their competencies, we map areas which need to be improved, and there are mentors from the university, from the business school, and mentors from Harappa who actually handhold that particular student in that journey towards transforming from a student with certain capabilities to a global citizen, a global leader, a global manager who is able to go over and take any challenge in any part of the world. We call it the passport to excellence. And this has been extremely successful because it directly links to internships and placements. In our master's program, we have a mandatory internship opportunity with industries. So companies recruit these people on 4-month internship challenges. And very often than not, these internships get converted into placements. So I think it's an ongoing relationship with multiple stakeholders across the globe. And because of our formidable rankings in the world, top 100 in the Financial Times twice, top 100 in the Economist, top 20 in the Forbes rankings, top 10 in the Forbes rankings, and more recently, top 5 in the Times Higher Education and Wall Street Journal. It has held us in good stead to make us relevant in an increasingly globalized world. And certainly, if you put all these things conscientiously and continuously, you are creating managers that are relevant for a VUCA world, a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chris. We will take the closing remarks on this related topic from Raquel first, and then from Dr. Shaha. Raquel, over to you.
Okay, thank you. This is something very, very dear to me. I think what institutions all over the world aspire to do, and several of them are doing very well, is to empower young people with 3 different competencies. So I would say one, the starting point is always identity. Young people need not just a lot of input and exposure and stimulus from the outside world, they need to know themselves intrinsically, look within themselves. Knowing yourself is always the starting point. The second part is what Dr. Chris alluded to, which is the employability skill sets. And there are different ways in which you can do it, but I think the more sustainable way is when it's integrated into your curriculum and it also attracts credits. So people take it seriously and it starts from day one. So with the student understanding where they are, who they are right now, drawing a career map, and then knowing how to make use of your time on campus, online, or off campus, depending on what you do, to make yourself attractive and have a better outcome at the end of the course. So the outcome could be employability or entrepreneurship or innovation. So you've got to address all dimensions of it because each child is very different. But the starting point is always knowing yourself. Then, all the other employability dimensions come in, your, work integrated learning, your capstone projects, different industry or research projects that you could do. And the important thing is you need to also have career management competencies, which is a lifelong skill. Because young people today will have 17 different jobs in their lifetime. There's no such thing as a job for life anymore. So which means besides the academic knowledge, they've got to be empowered with these competencies of how to, at any given point, assess yourself, look at options available, find the right fit, and make a plan and execute it. And you would do it, repeatedly throughout your life. And then you're setting them up for success beyond the university. So I think that career management dimension is very empowering because once they leave campus, they don't have anyone to tell them what to do. They need to know it themselves. And you build the competency by embedding a strong careers curriculum framework alongside your academic rigor or your research. And I think then that is definitely a recipe for success.
Thank you so much, Raquel. Wise words for advice in these closing words. Dr. Shaha, over to you.
Yeah, quickly, I'll take very short time. Internship should be embedded in the program. So Bismillani has at even undergraduate level in an 8-semester program, 7.5 months internship is there, which is embedded into the program with the credits. 2 months internship up between second year, third year, that is summer between second and third year, 5.5 months in the final year, where the students spend 5.5 months in the industry. They are only going to the industry, not coming to the campus at all. At this moment, 250 plus students are doing internship in different companies, doing the live project of the company, where company pays them even allowances, which ultimately give them the employability also, because many of these companies after 5.5 intern, they rather recruit the student because they are already matured. So this is half of the students go in the first semester, half of the students go to the second semester, so company gets throughout the year the people. I think internship is a very, very important part, which basically 40 years back is created and embedded into the part of the program. This is an important part has to be there, which enhances employability, and then universities should also arrange placement for the students. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shaha. We come at the end of our allocated time. It was a pleasure meeting all of you. I really, really hope and I know that we'll be connected further in the future. Sunit, Rackwell, Dr. Chris, Pranav, and Dr. Shaha. It was a real, real, real pleasure.
Pleasure to meet all of you. Thank you
Pleasure,
very
all
much.
of you.
Thank you,
Everyone.
Thanks,
Rahul, over to
everyone.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Pauline. Thanks, Pauline.
Now, I'd like to say that was a phenomenal deliberation. I'd like to thank all the eminent speakers for their time, especially when taking into consideration that you all are joining from different parts of the globe. And Pauline ma'am, you did a fabulous job moderating the whole session. It was a joy and a pleasure hosting you all. Hope you too all had a wonderful time as well. Thank you for your time. And now, with that being said, I'd now like to thank our wonderful audience for all their time and support. There's a feedback link in the chat box. Please do fill it up and help us understand on how we can improvise our delivery. Also, do follow our social media handles to get all the updates on our upcoming events. Thank you so much to everyone. Once again, stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.